Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. There was nothing youthful about us except our actions. The three grown men behaved like a bunch of teenagers. It was a bad situation, and we tried our best not to let it consume us. It's easy to get angry and vindictive when your wife is cheating on you. It takes self-control not to explode. As long as the three of us were together, we could support each other. So which of our wives cheated? All of them. All this happened within 6 months. My wife Loretta started acting, and she had no problem getting Dora and Colleen to join her. By the time the three of us realized what was going on, it was too late to save any marriages. None of us were interested in trying. Everything fell into place tonight. Surprisingly, none of the wives suspect that we know what the hell is going on. We have spent the last month preparing, and we are really excited that we will succeed. Woody, Terry, and I grew up together. We were born and raised in Womelsdorf and originally planned to retire here. Unfortunately, everything changed when the wives went off the rails. Tomorrow, we were leaving for our new life in Canada. Tonight would be our last youthful romance. Why is it youthful? Well, what we planned was childish and inappropriate. We preferred it to cruelty and vindictiveness. It was Terry's idea to go to Canada. The three of us went fishing there every summer. We always had a great time and often talked about how great it would be to live there permanently. Of course, we were all married and had children. Both my daughters got married and separated. Terry had a son who served in the Air Force. Woody had 2 sons who went to college, and a 17-year-old daughter, Caitlin, who still lives at home. Caitlin would have been a problem until Woody found out that she was aware of what her mother was doing. She threatened to leave if he didn't do something about it. As a result, 3 guys and 1 single-minded teenage girl went to Canada. It was difficult for a while, but we all agreed that we could still do it. Terry was a chef. In fact, he was a cook. He had no formal education, just a lot of experience. For the past 10 years, he and Dora have owned a small family restaurant. Well, they did have a restaurant until Terry sold it last week without Dora's knowledge. I'm not sure how he did it all, but he walked away with $100,000 in cash. When he added this to all the money he had withdrawn from the bank and cashed out on insurance policies, we got a good starter package. Woody owned an auto repair shop with his brother Glenn. Glenn had been trying to buy out Woody's share for years, so it was another easy $100,000 for us. He received almost half as much for his 1964 Vet. He cleaned out all his bank accounts today. I was the only one of the whole company who went to college. I didn't have a business like the other guys, but I had over $250,000 of investments. I received a good salary as an electrical engineer and invested wisely. Even in a bad market, I was able to insist on my own. It took a couple of weeks to eliminate, but now everything has been done. So we had about $1 million in total. Our initial goal was to purchase a fishing lodge, but at some point we relented and settled on one where our guests could come by car. In the end, it cost us almost $500,000, but we were happy. We had enough cash left to start and feed ourselves for at least 4 years. If we had made money, everything would have been even better. We all packed up and were ready. Tomorrow morning, a caravan of 3 cars was leaving for a new life in the northern forests. Wow, that sounded about as exciting as Little House on the Prairie. Loretta worked in the claims settlement department of one of the major insurance companies in the area. Anyway, she got close to her boss, Raymond Upright. In order to meet Raymond in the evenings, she persuaded Dora and Colleen to replace her. The girls would go out for dinner and drinks together, or to some kind of house party so that Loretta would have the opportunity to meet Raymond at his house. This went on for a couple of months, and then Raymond set up a date with Colleen. The girls didn't want to leave Dora unattended, so a couple of weeks later, she also got a permanent escort. So as it stands, every Wednesday night the girls go out while the guys play poker. The 3 ladies and their lovers spent time making love at Raymond's country house. We never found out if there was any exchange, but it didn't seem important. Woody chose the Holiday Inn as the gathering place. We waited at home until the wives left for an evening walk. For some reason, each of them arrived in their own car. I think it was in case one of them wanted to leave early or stay late. Caitlin was unhappy that she had to wait for us at the motel, but we couldn't risk taking her with us. We didn't plan anything particularly complicated, but we could still have problems. Woody and Terry were going to go straight back to the Holiday Inn, so they went together. I wanted to see Loretta one last time before I left, so I took my car. There were 6 cars parked in front of the Upright house. It seemed that everyone was driving by themselves. About half an hour after we got there, the light came on in one of the bedrooms and then went out again. Shortly after, the same thing happened in the other 2 bedrooms. Each of us had a set of pliers for the side cutters. It took less than 2 minutes to cut all the valve rods on each of the machines. I had inspected the house a week earlier, so I knew exactly where the electrics maintenance box was. The individual switches were inside, but the main panel was outside, just above the meter. While I was going up to the house, Terry and Woody were preparing smoke bombs. Terry built 10 smoke bombs using a PVC pipe. I do not know what was in them, except saltpeter and sugar. Terry tested them, and they burned for 20 to 30 minutes. They were big suckers. Woody walked around the back of the house, and Terry walked around the front. When I saw the first trickle of white smoke, I pressed the main power switch. Using my tools, I opened the box and pulled out the main switch. By the time I got to the car, all 10 smoke bombs were working at full power. Most of them were white, but a few were orange and red. When we left, the house was completely shrouded in smoke. On the way home, I used the phone to call 2 local television stations. It had been at least an hour when I heard a car door slam in front of the house. Loretta looked like shit when she walked into the house. I was sitting in front of the TV with a beer turned off. It wasn't cold because I had been holding it in my hand for the last half hour. "How was your evening, dear?" She put down her purse and kicked off her shoes. "I had to take a taxi home. There was a flat tire in the car." "Why didn't you call me?" There was no response. "Do you want me to go get your car?" "No, I'll take care of it in the morning. I'm tired. I need to take a shower and I want to go to bed." "Loretta, where are your earrings? You were wearing diamond earrings when you left the house." Her hand went up to her ear and her mouth opened slightly. I expected her to say they were in her purse, but she didn't say anything. "Let me guess. You took them off so you wouldn't lose them in bed. You left your purse in the living room, so you had to put the earrings on the bedside table. When the lights went out, you forgot your earrings in your hurry to get out of the house. This is all?" She looked at me questioningly. "How did you know that the lights went out?" I picked up the main switch, which I pulled out of the box. "Oh my God, no. Have you been there? Please, John, don't tell me you were there." I smiled and got up from my chair. "I wasn't alone. Terry and Woody were with me. We'll leave in the morning. We bought a shrimp boat in Bayou La Batre, Alabama. I hope that you and Raymond will be very happy." "John, wait. Don't go away. John, can we talk?" "John." I slammed the door behind me and went to the car. I drove past the upright on my way to the motel. There was a pair of black and white and 4 tow trucks trying to take cars out of there. I parked down the street and went straight to the garage. No one tried to stop me. The house was dark and empty. I used a mini flashlight to check the bedrooms. In the second one, I found a pair of diamond earrings along with both of Loretta's wedding rings. I found it interesting that she actually took off her rings before committing adultery. 10 minutes later, I was at the Holiday Inn. Loretta called the other wives, and they were desperately trying to sort things out. According to Terry, Dora was crying so hysterically that he couldn't understand a word she was saying. He turned off his phone. Colleen, on the other hand, was not so emotional. All she did was demand that Woody come home immediately and explain himself. He also turned off his phone. We had booked one room with 2 double beds. Caitlin wasn't thrilled about sleeping in a room with 3 guys, but she was added at the last minute, so she had to put up with it. We slept in our clothes and set off at 5 the next morning. We had a room booked for the next night in Plattsburgh. Woody promised Caitlin that she would have a private room. We were on the road about 5 o'clock when my cell phone rang. I forgot to turn it off. The caller ID showed that it was my eldest daughter, Sarah. "Dad, this is Sarah. What's going on between you and Mom? Is she there?" "Yes, and she's desperate. She said you wouldn't let her explain anything." "Did she explain that to you?" "No, she just said that you're being unreasonable and unfair. That's all I can get out of her." "Sarah, do me a favor. See if your mother wears wedding rings." There was a short pause. "No, what does it mean?" "Ask her where her wedding rings are." I heard a few muffled sounds, and then Sarah came back. "Dad, what the hell is going on?" I asked about her rings, and she burst into tears and ran out of the house. She drove away, but I didn't recognize the car she was driving. When your mom is ready to tell you what happened, I'll talk to you. Until then, I really have nothing more to say. I'll stop by her house later today. I turned off my phone. I didn't have to call anyone anymore. Divorce papers will be handed to each of the wives at noon today. Raymond Upright will receive divorce papers, as will Carl Wilcox and Dennis Roswell. Our mutual lawyer, Seymour Schlamp, promised to keep us informed of developments if he had the opportunity to contact us. Seymour went to school with us and was proud to be a part of our revenge efforts. In fact, this is not revenge, but just a way to get away from the problem. 2 days later, we settled into our new home. I hope our wives expected us to go to Alabama. It would be easier if no one was looking for us. Terry was delighted with the kitchen, his new empire. The lodge was closed for 2 weeks so that we could get acquainted with the situation. At that time, several old employees were staying with us. Woody had a lot of work to do. He had very little free time between turning on the outboard motors and humming the lodge generators. Caitlin agreed to wait tables and run the household. But since she was not a co-owner, she wanted to be paid. How could we refuse? By the time our first guest arrived, we had everything ready. Terry planned the menu and filled the pantry. Woody tuned all the outboard motors. The overall management of the institution fell on my shoulders. I liked this challenge. Experienced local fishing guides were looking forward to the guests. What they cooked depended on how successful their trip was. We didn't have to worry about that. When I had the opportunity, I worked on the lodge's website. The better the website, the easier it will be to maintain room occupancy. Terry, Woody, and I were fishermen. When autumn came, we had to start providing services to people who were interested in hunting or something else. At that time, we had no idea what we were going to do. We decided to cross this bridge when we came to it. Things were going great at the lodge. Things were different at home. Seymour called to give us the latest news. Dora was the only one of the wives who signed and returned the divorce papers. She didn't want a divorce, but she felt obligated to do everything Terry asked her to do. However, she became a recluse. She stayed at home most of the time and refused to talk to anyone. Colleen disappeared with Dennis Roswell. Seymour couldn't even serve them. No one knew where she was. Seymour saved the worst news for last. Loretta refused to sign the divorce papers, and Raymond Upright moved into her house. To our house. That's all for a repentant wife. I was useless at the lodge for the next few days. Finally, Woody and Terry sat me down and insisted that I come home and fix everything. I didn't wait until morning. I woke up in the middle of the night and drove south. It wasn't fair to the guys if I didn't do my bit. I had to fix everything. Of course, I shit myself about halfway through. I'm not a marathon runner. I rented a small room and called Seymour. I told him to sue Continental Paragon for $1 million with a reconciliation clause. If they fire both Loretta and Raymond, I'll drop the lawsuit. Seymour complained a bit because he knew which option they would choose and saw a lot of money flying out the window. I told him to bill me for my working hours and hand over the papers at noon tomorrow. I got up early and hit the road. By 8 o'clock, I was sitting in front of the house, out of sight. 10 minutes later, the garage door opened and Loretta and Raymond left for work together. It looked natural, and it made me angry. It's time for a few more youthful antics. I went into Kroger's and bought half a dozen cans of red beetroot and a pack of rubber gloves. By that time, my favorite Oriental market had opened. The first purchase was 5 kilograms of what is usually called stinky tofu. In the frozen food department, I bought 5 packages of frozen skinny fish. I do not know what it is actually called. We bought it as bait for fish because it smelled terrible. We just called her Skinny. The last thing I bought was a pair of durian fruits. Durian fruit is considered to be the most foul-smelling product in the world. I was sure I could figure out how to use it. 30 minutes later, I returned to my old house. I figured I had about 3 hours to do what I needed to do. The first thing to do was to use Skinny before she started to thaw. All I needed was a regular screwdriver. I went from room to room and removed the covers from every electrical switch and outlet. I threw 2 fish at the wall behind each device. It took me about 10 minutes to get to each room. After an hour and a half, I ran out of fish. The sticky tofu was soft and mushy. He was spreading like butter. I have used it on the top and bottom of mattresses and on all furniture pillows. The smell permeated the fabric and could not be removed. I had to use a kitchen knife to slice the durian into pieces. Wow, he stank of rot. I stuck a piece deep into each of the heating and air conditioning channels in the house. I walked around to inspect my work. I carefully screwed all the electrical appliances so that they couldn't figure out where the smell was coming from. Pleased with my efforts, I sprinkled red beet juice on every carpet in every room. No stain remover can remove it. I'm done in the house. Before leaving, I went to the garage and opened the switch panel. I removed each switch and then the main one. I pulled out the panel and unscrewed each connection with my trusty screwdriver. It was a real nightmare for electricians, especially since I took the panel and switches with me. My work here was finished. Now they can take the house. In 30 minutes, the real hell will begin at the Continental Paragon. It was time to leave. For some reason, I felt I had to stop and see Dora. She let me into the house and offered me coffee. I felt obliged to accept the invitation. She asked how Terry was doing, but didn't ask anything else. We sat in silence until I finished my coffee. I asked her if there was anything I could do for her. She burst into tears and left the room. When I got to the door, she called out to me, "John, tell him for me. Please tell him for me." "Tell him what?" She came back crying again. It was hard for me to understand her. "I didn't make love to him, John. Tell Terry that I didn't make love to Carl. I was doing something else." "What do you mean by other things?" "You know, he kept harassing me. I had to do something to make him stop. I didn't even want to be there. Colleen and Loretta made me go. They thought if I did it too, I wouldn't say anything. I felt trapped. I was just standing there. I didn't know what to say. Please, John, tell Terry I didn't make love to him. I love Terry, and I'm sorry that I let Colleen and Loretta talk me into going with them. I do not know what to do. Help me, John." I felt worse than before I came. I nodded to her and left. She sincerely regretted what she had done, but did not know how to fix it. Before heading back, I stopped to see Sarah. She didn't talk to her mother anymore. Loretta didn't tell her what happened, but she found out somehow. When Sarah confronted Loretta, there was an argument that had not yet been resolved. Another damn grief. I was near Plattsburgh when my cell phone rang. It was Loretta. Sarah must have given her my number. "John, what the hell have you done? Can you be a little more specific?" "I was fired today. They said they had to either fire me or go to court. Your name was mentioned." "It's terrible, darling. I was hoping they would just pay me $1 million. I think we both lost." It was hard not to laugh. "That's not all. When I returned home, I found that the house had been trashed. There was no electricity and it smelled just disgusting. What have you done to my house?" "This is not your house, Loretta. You refused to sign the divorce papers. This is our home. He's as much mine as yours, and I can do whatever I want with him. I called the police. You'll have to pay to have it fixed and the charges dropped." "Why don't you just ask Raymond to fix it? He seems to be handling things better than me. He'd love to talk to you about it, John, especially since you got him fired too." "I'll tell you what, Loretta, next time I'm in town, I'll call him." The conversation was getting a little redundant. I was glad to hear that everything went well, but I really didn't want to talk to her anymore. I never bothered to say goodbye, but just turned off my phone. I was hoping to be back at the lodge for breakfast. While I was away, everything went smoothly, except for one small problem. "Caitlin, where the hell is your father?" "Hi, John. Welcome back. Dad will only be gone for a couple of days. He had a little problem that he had to solve in Vegas." "Yes, he had to borrow some cash for the trip. He asked me to tell you not to worry." "How much cash does he have?" 10,000? What the hell does he need $10,000 for?" "I'm not sure, but I think it has something to do with Mom." "Oh shit, where's Terry?" "In the kitchen, preparing for dinner." "Well, except for the fact that one of the partners escaped with a large portion of our operating capital, everything seemed to be in order. Terry was busy, but he seemed to have everything under control. He realized that it was easier to serve a small buffet every day than to allow guests to order from the menu. It worked for him, and there were no complaints from the tenants." "John, welcome back. How was your trip?" "It was actually a lot of fun. I was glad I went." "I think you know Woody's gone?" Caitlin told me about it briefly, but she didn't seem to know much. "Colleen is in trouble. She called Seymour and asked if he could contact Woody. It looks like Dennis ran away from her after he put up a decent bill at the hotel. She was arrested at the hotel for defrauding the hotel owner. The bill was just under $10,000. They're keeping her in the local jail until the bill is paid. She faces some jail time if nothing is done soon." "You're not saying Woody's going to use our money to pay the hotel bill for Colleen and her boyfriend, are you?" "I don't think so." He was smiling when he left. Maybe he has something up his sleeve. God, I really hope so. We may need this money for the winter. He bought a round-trip ticket and is due back tonight. I turned to leave when I remembered my visit to Dora. "Terry, I saw Dora when I was at home. She's not doing well." "Oh shit. After what they did to us, I don't feel any sympathy for her or the others. I'm not sure, but I think it could have been different with Dora." "In a different way? How? A traitor is a traitor. There's no way to fix this. Loretta and Colleen may have pressured her to join them. I don't think she wanted it, but she felt like she was being forced into it. Is that what she told you? Not really, but she wanted me to make sure to tell you that she didn't make love to that guy. Then what the hell was she doing there? I didn't answer him. There was a brief pause in the conversation before he started putting two and two together. Oh shit, don't tell me. She said she felt like she had to do something. She insisted that I tell you that she didn't make love to him. Obviously, Loretta and Colleen really put pressure on her. I could tell Terry was upset. She shouldn't have been there at all. I left him to think alone. I think I understood what was going on in his head, but I have to admit that I didn't know what I would have done under the same circumstances. It only took me a few hours to finish the day's business. I needed to figure out how we could make money during the winter months. We closed the fishing season, but we needed a little more. We were not interested in competing with hunting camps and unanimously rejected everything related to snowmobiles. My research was interrupted by a new guest. Amanda Freese was an amazing woman. God, that was a banal phrase. I scolded myself for even thinking about it. She was in her 40s. She had short dark hair and a permanent tan. She wasn't a beauty, but her posture and demeanor made up for it. I assume you're the new owner? One of them. How can I help you? I can take care of myself. I'm Amanda Freese. I have been coming here regularly for the last few years and hope to continue doing so. I hope you haven't changed too much, because I hate change. If there are any changes that you don't like, just let me know. I will do it, I assure you. I felt like she was trying to tease me a little, but I wasn't sure of her purpose. It was my duty to make her happy, but I wasn't going to let her bully me. Luc Boudreau was my constant guide. I suppose he's still available? Absolutely. I'm going to spend the rest of the day getting settled today. Can you make sure that Luc will be here in the morning? No problem, Mrs. Freese. Luc Boudreau was more than happy to tell me about Amanda Freese. For some reason, she liked him. He was no better or worse than the other guides, but he refused to listen to her chatter. He said she seemed to like it. The only thing she was interested in was pike fishing. It was weird because she came from Burlington. There were a lot of pike in Lake Champlain. She had no reason to come to us herself. Luc wasn't sure, but he thought she was divorced. She had a son who only went on one trip with her. He hated spending time at the lake, so she never took him with her. She tipped heavily and seemed to be Luc's favorite guest. Pike fishing was an unusual choice for a woman. It wasn't exactly exciting. Hooking and planting a pike is like catching a log. She never brought any of them. It was strictly on a catch-and-let-go basis. There was something fascinating about her. I was looking forward to her staying with us. Sometime in the middle of the night, Woody returned. When I came down the stairs, he was already halfway through his breakfast and seemed glad to see me. Tell me the bad news, Woody. How much did your trip to Vegas cost us in the end? Woody laughed softly as Caitlin poured me a cup of coffee. Not a cent, my friend. Not a damn cent. You seem to be in a good mood. I didn't expect this. I paid for the ticket myself, John. Round-trip tickets to Las Vegas are pretty cheap. I took a wad of cash with me to flash it in front of Colleen. It worked perfectly. What worked? Woody finished his meal and pushed the plate aside. They held Colleen until she could pay the hotel bill, which she and the jerk hadn't paid. He ran away from her, but she wasn't smart enough to figure out what was going on. When she pays $9,700 plus legal fees, she will be released. I showed her the money and promised to take care of everything as soon as she signed the divorce papers. I've never seen her act so fast. I thought you said it didn't cost us anything. John, I'm not that stupid. I took the signed papers and walked right out of the courthouse. I'm sure it took several hours before she realized that I had fooled her as much as Dennis had. I mailed the signed papers to Seymour and boarded the next plane back to Montreal. You're disgusting, Woody. Yes, I know, and I feel great. When Caitlin came over to pour me coffee, I asked her to bring me something for breakfast. She said it would take some time because Terry was gone. So what the hell is going on? Caitlin handled the kitchen better than I did, so I helped wait tables so she could focus on cooking. Fortunately, the breakfast crowd dispersed within a few hours. I cleaned up the kitchen while Caitlin did all the housework. The buffet lunch was a little more relaxed. Being a food delivery man was easier than being a waiter. Caitlin did a great job cooking the food again. There was no doubt that we needed additional help. Luc Boudreau was waiting for me in my office after lunch. It wasn't a good sign because I didn't want to lose him as a guide. Mr. Mercer, I just need a minute of your time. Is something wrong, Luc? If so, I will do everything in my power to fix it. It's all right, but I'm worried about Miss Amanda. How worried are you? She asks a lot of questions. She never does that. She's mad at me because I can't answer most of them. I don't want her to be mad at me. What kind of questions? Mostly about you and why you bought the house. She asked me where you were from and about your wife. I can't answer any of these questions. Has she never done this before? Hell no. She had never even talked to me before, except about the pike. Anything else? She asked a lot of questions about the young girl, the one who runs the household. Caitlin? Why would she ask about her? Luke just shrugged his shoulders. He felt awkward about the whole situation, so I thanked him and he left quickly. He seemed relieved and satisfied with the conversation. Woody took care of dinner. He set up some grills on the front porch and we asked all the guests to cook the steaks themselves. The weather was cool and balmy, but everyone seemed to like it, even Amanda Freese. Beans, coleslaw, and garlic toast were an easy addition. Woody and Caitlin were clearing the table and I noticed Amanda Freese sitting by the fireplace with a glass of red wine. It wasn't really cold enough to make a good fire, but the small fireplace looked nice. May I join you? She didn't say anything, but she shifted on the couch to make more room. It was a good sign. I had no idea what I was going to say next. Did Luke come to you? She was expecting my visit. Did you tell him? Actually, no, but I, so to speak, recharged the pump a little. Did you lure him in? In a way. It became obvious that Luke didn't know any more about you and your staff than I did. It would be awkward for me to contact you directly, so I was hoping that he would be able to interest you so much that you would come to me. Are you a very treacherous woman? Is there a purpose to your madness? She finished her wine and laughed a little. I reached for the empty glass, which she readily handed to me. A few moments later, I returned with a bottle and 2 glasses. Now that you no longer feel awkward, are there any questions that you would like to have answered? A few. I'll make a deal with you. I can ask you a question for everyone you ask me. It's not fair. I have the right to privacy, but you don't. Would you rather just sit here and enjoy the wine and the fire? No. I want to get some answers to some questions. You know how to argue. Yes, it is. Are you married? It's not fair. You asked a question when I wasn't looking. I do not know if it was because of the wine or because of the banter, but we both felt comfortable. I'm married, or should I say that I was. I am currently in the process of getting divorced. She nodded when I answered and took a sip of wine. It's my turn. Are you divorced? You asked this question the other way around. Yes, I know. I'm an optimist. I've been divorced for 9 years now, and I have an 18-year-old son. I have 2 daughters. They got married and separated. I didn't ask. I foresaw it. It was a strange conversation, and it lasted more than an hour. I was forced to open another bottle of wine before we finished. Amanda finally apologized because Luke was waiting for her at 6 a.m., and she proudly announced that she was never late. I was looking forward to spending more time with her. The next morning brought some unexpected surprises. Woody and I went down to breakfast together and were surprised that our new waitress was none other than Dora. Woody and I smiled at each other, wishing her a good morning. Neither of us made any witty remarks and tried our best to act as if nothing out of the ordinary was happening. At some point, I caught Dora's gaze on me, and she silently said, "Thank you." I just nodded. Seymour called later that morning. Loretta agreed to sign the divorce papers with one condition. She wanted to be free of all obligations related to the house and for me to become the sole owner. The house was trashed, but there were still good bones in it. I told him to agree. I was 900 kilometers away, but I was sure I could come up with something. It was nice to see the positive results of a silly, childish prank. What really struck me was that she wasn't trying to get any of the accumulated assets. She only knew about half of them, but it was strange that she was more than willing to leave without demanding anything. Terry poked his nose into the office and winked at me, but that was all. He was a better person than me, and I was pleased for him. Amanda Freese took the day off after fishing. She was in the main cabin with Caitlin. I looked in on them several times, trying to figure out what was going on. At times, Caitlin seemed a little worried about the older woman, which indicated that they were disagreeing about something, but she didn't leave. I had a hard time concentrating the rest of the day. I wanted to talk to Terry to find out what happened, which brought him back together with Dora. I was hoping to have a little chat with Luke to see if the mysterious Mrs. Freese had said anything during the morning fishing trip. What was going on between Amanda and Caitlin? I was dying to call Loretta, just to let her talk a little and gloat quietly. I was sure Dora wanted to talk to me, but without the obvious. Damn it, I was turning into the busiest person in the world. Suddenly, I found myself laughing at the stupidity of everything that was happening. Woody came in with a couple of cold beers and broke the spell. Terry was whining because we used up all the steaks and ruined his menu for the rest of the week. The beer was undoubtedly delicious. Woody and I decided that we wouldn't ask Terry about what was going on with Dora. When he's ready, he'll tell us. Shortly after Woody left, Luke came by just to let me know that Mrs. Freeze was in a great mood that morning. She caught some fish, but didn't seem upset about it. As he left, he smiled at me and winked. I wasn't sure what that meant. Amanda Freeze always sat alone during meals. I tried to avoid casual contact with the guests, but tonight I decided to visit a mysterious woman. In fact, she wasn't that mysterious anymore, just interesting. May I join you? Of course, I haven't ordered yet. You didn't go out this afternoon. No, I wanted to talk to Caitlin. I should have asked her father's permission first, but I hoped that everything would go smoothly. How did you do it? Not too well, I'm afraid. I couldn't explain it the way I should have. I just hope I didn't mess it up too much. Dora interrupted the conversation to take our dinner order. We chose one of the 3 first courses, and the rest was prepared in advance. Terry knew how to simplify the situation. What exactly were you trying to do? I told you last night that I have a son. You mentioned this, but did not specify it. Jason is very smart, looks good, and is physically healthy. But he has one problem. Since childhood, he has been subjected to mental abuse by his father. Although he always succeeded in everything he undertook, his father was never satisfied. Constant intimidation and belittlement have robbed him of his self-respect and self-confidence. He stutters and avoids contact with other people, whether they are adults or people his age. I suppose that was the reason for the divorce? Absolutely. I also have a restraining order that prevents his father from contacting him even after he has reached the age of majority. I have good lawyers. The conversation was interrupted for a moment when Dora served us food. Luke said that Jason came here to the hunting lodge with you once. Yes, I hoped it would help him relax, but he hated the lake and fishing. Since then, when I come, he stays with my sister. Aren't you ashamed to leave him alone? Yes, but I think it's necessary. I don't want him to depend on me. At some point, he's going to have to be on his own. Every time, I try to stay away a little longer to prepare him. Unfortunately, leaving him with my sister doesn't help much. I think I understand where this is going, but why Caitlin? She's the same age as Jason. She seems balanced and confident. She works hard. Other than that, I don't know much about her. She is attractive, and people seem to feel comfortable around her. What exactly did you expect her to do for you, or should I say for Jason? All I wanted her to do was spend some one-on-one time with him. I was hoping that I could bring him here for a few weeks, and maybe he would open up a little bit. He's scheduled to enroll at Princeton in 6 weeks. In his current state, he won't be able to go. I've spent thousands of dollars on professional therapists, and it's all been wasted. It's probably too much to expect in 2 weeks. I have to try something. I noticed that Caitlin doesn't seem too happy. She promised to think about it, but I'm afraid it doesn't look very promising. Would you like to talk to Woody? I was hoping you could do this for me. Why me? I'm a good judge of character. Unfortunately, I let my father choose my husband. I will never make that mistake again. I'll see what I can do. Will you have dessert? I'll do that if you join me. I found Caitlin and Woody on the porch. It was cool, but beautiful. May I interrupt? Of course. Caitlin and I were waiting for you to come out. How was your dinner? Interesting. Your beautiful daughter was the topic of our discussion at dinner. This is what we were hoping for. Uncle John, she made me angry. I can't tell if she wants me to be a babysitter for the kids. I wasn't really her uncle, but she used to call me that years ago, and it seems to have stuck. There is a big difference between these 2 options. Well, I'm not happy with any of the options. Is that how she presented it to you, or did you come to that conclusion yourself? Caitlin waited a moment before answering. No, I just assumed that was what she was getting at. Anyway, I don't intend to spend my time with a moron. Wow, baby, poor choice of words. Woody seemed a little annoyed by his daughter's insensitivity. Well, I do not know how else to describe him. Mrs. Freeze tried to explain what was wrong with him, but I really didn't pay attention. My thoughts were racing from side to side. Caitlin, he's going to Princeton in a couple of months. He's not stupid or mentally retarded. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, he's pretty damn smart. Woody and I watched his daughter pacing back and forth on the porch. No, it's still wrong. She offers me money to take care of her son. I'm not a babysitter, and I'm not... She stopped in mid-sentence. I'm not an escort. You don't pay someone to spend time with someone like that. I smiled at her audacity. I have a simple solution. Why don't you tell her that you'll do whatever she wants for free? This way, your reputation will remain unblemished. What kind of reputation? I don't care what other people think. I have to come to terms with myself. Woody laughed softly at his daughter's attempt to act like an adult. What she was saying made sense, but it was too long. How can I do my job and watch him at the same time? Dora can take over all your kitchen and dining room duties, and Jason can help you with housework in the morning. Thus, the afternoon remains free. Then what am I supposed to do with him? Running naked through the woods and making crazy passionate love. Woody tried, but couldn't keep a straight face. It was a stupid way to tease his own daughter, but she was open to it, and he just couldn't resist. Damn it, Dad, stop. This is serious, and you and John are turning it into some kind of joke. Caitlin plopped down on the bench between us. Okay, I'll do it, but only for 2 weeks. Woody hugged her. I'm not sure why, but I think he was proud of the decision she made. We all got up and headed back to the house. Dad, why can't I go to Princeton? Woody just groaned and slapped her ass. Later that evening, Amanda and I had coffee in front of the fireplace. She seemed pleased with how things were going and decided to extend her stay at the lodge so that she could be here at the same time as her son. She seemed a little upset when I expressed disapproval of her idea. However, we came to a compromise. I promised to entertain her if she promised to leave Caitlin and Jason alone. She found the idea funny and wanted to know exactly what I meant. I still haven't had time to talk to Terry or Dora about why she was at the lodge. It could have waited until they were ready. After I went to bed, I couldn't sleep. One thing went over and over in my head. Why didn't Loretta try to take at least some of the money that was in the bank? Why did she pay so quickly? What was that? What didn't I know? Amanda was already on the water when I came down to breakfast. Woody and I ate blueberry pancakes, but we didn't waste time on frivolous conversations. He needed to repair 2 outboard motors, and I needed to pay the bills. I waited until late in the morning to call Seymour. I had this damn itch that needed to be scratched. John, I was as worried as you are, but I didn't want to muddy the waters. I decided that getting Loretta to sign the papers was the most important thing. However, I initiated one of my girls into the problem. Was it a problem or something else? Do you remember when Loretta's father died? Yes, that was about 6 years ago. It was quite sad because she had lost both her parents within 2 years. Loretta's father had a life insurance policy worth $100,000. Did you know about this? She didn't mention a damn thing about it. Loretta transferred the insurance to a money market account at Berkshire Credit Union under her maiden name. You're kidding, right? Why the hell would she do that? John will probably never know unless she decides to tell you herself. I assumed she didn't want to try to get any part of your joint estate because she didn't want to risk losing her insurance money. Ray Upright didn't even come to town until last year, so he had nothing to do with it. No, but it raises another interesting point. Mr. Upright has a wife and 2 children in Colorado Springs. As far as we could determine, Loretta didn't know about it. I couldn't help myself. I started laughing on the phone. I'm sorry, Seymour, but this is fucking ridiculous. She gave up everything for a man who was married and didn't even know about it? It looks like it, and it's only getting worse. How is this possible? She cashed the account yesterday and left with a check for $4,000. It looks like she's going to leave town. All we can do is wait and see. At least you're out of danger. I hung up the phone and was sitting quietly chuckling to myself when Dora came in. John, I just wanted to thank you for talking to Terry. I really appreciate it. She looked down at her feet as she spoke. Is everything all right? Almost so. It's not the way it was, but it's much better than it could have been. Dora, I think he really loves you. I'm glad that everything is going back to normal. There was a short pause, and then she looked up. It's okay, John, but it's not going back to normal. Maybe in a while, but not now. I can wait. What does this mean? Her eyes started to water a little. It was not my intention to cause her any distress, so I decided to change the subject. She started to turn and walk away, but stopped. He's not kissing me, John. My husband refuses to kiss me. We do everything else, but he can't bring himself to touch my lips with his own. It hurts, but I think I deserve it. She was sobbing softly as she left the office. I didn't know what to say. Jason Freese arrived shortly after lunch. He was good-looking and well-behaved. You would find it hard to believe that he was as socially incompetent as his mother pointed out. Caitlin noticed him as soon as he entered the cabin, and a big smile immediately appeared on her face. I don't think he was what she expected. The next 2 weeks promised to be interesting. Amanda made me go fishing with her several times. I didn't mind fishing for perch or walleye, but pike fishing seemed boring to me. I think it was partly because I couldn't tell the difference between cutting and hanging on algae. Luke found it all funny, although he did his best to keep himself in check. Eventually, she stopped forcing me to go out to the lake with her if I agreed to take nature walks during the day. Terry and Woody were happy with how things were going. The three of us often got together to discuss business. Terry never talked about his relationship with Dora. Woody and I tactfully didn't bring this up. Of course, we all watched Caitlin and Jason. At first, everything went slowly, but on the second day it gained momentum. Woody and I finally cornered her and made her tell us what was going on. I don't think the problem is as serious as Mrs. Freeze presents it. Why is this so? He's just very shy, and it's mostly because of his stutter. He can't speak properly at all, and because of this, he avoids other people at all costs, especially girls. I think he must have been teased a lot when he was younger. He seems comfortable with you. Not at first, Dad. It's getting better now, but I think it might take more than 2 weeks. Woody started laughing. You mean you want it to take more than 2 weeks? I didn't say that. Don't make it up. John, I think my daughter has got a boyfriend. What do you think I should do about it? We should think about a chaperone. It was a feeble attempt to tease her, but she reacted. Stop it now. He'll only be here for a few weeks and then I'll never see him again. He's a good guy and I don't understand what all the fuss is about. Does he have a girlfriend? Uncle John, it doesn't matter. But the answer is no. I don't think he's ever gone on a date. Because his father beat him morally and his mother protected him, he didn't have a chance. Have you kissed him yet? No, Dad, I didn't kiss him and I'm not going to do it. Would you leave it at that? Everything is fine with us. Stop trying to ruin everything. With this short lecture, she left the room. Woody and I looked at each other and smiled. Amanda and I had dinner together that night. She seemed pleased with how Caitlin and Jason got along. I think she realized that part of his problem was that she was playing the role of a mother hen. It was nice to see that she was preparing to let him go alone. She also teased me for not fulfilling my part of our agreement. I promised to keep her busy, and she felt that I wasn't doing enough to fulfill that promise. Business at the lodge was going smoothly. The guests were satisfied, and we actually made a profit. It was small, but it was a profit. We contacted several ice hut operators in the area. They were more than willing to put as many objects on the lake at the lodge as we could accommodate. We could only operate them for about 10 weeks, but that would fill another period of inactivity. There were several bird-watching organizations in the area. This gave us another opportunity to fill in a few leisurely spring months. We had enough property and adjacent public lands to create several bird-watching routes. We doubted whether it was worth inviting guests to wander through the forest during the autumn hunting season, so we decided that autumn would be the best time to maintain the entire facility. I spent every evening with Amanda. It became natural and comfortable for both of us. It was almost 10 days after Jason's arrival when Woody and I had a little shock. Caitlin met with Amanda to update her on the progress she had made with Jason. According to Amanda, things were going much better than she had ever expected. They talked for about an hour, and then Woody's little daughter calmly asked Amanda if she could get her some birth control pills. This was something that Mrs. Freeze had not expected. Without hesitation, she agreed to do it. After Caitlin left, smiling, Amanda changed her mind. That's where Woody and I came in. Amanda had no problem complying with Caitlin's request, but she wouldn't consider it without Woody's approval. It's something a father shouldn't have to deal with. Mothers were created on this earth to take care of situations like this. Amanda and I tried our best to ease Woody's anxiety about this request. Reluctantly, he finally agreed that it was for the best. It turned out that Caitlin handled Jason better than any of us expected. The next morning, Loretta unexpectedly called me. John, I need a little help. When I signed the divorce papers, I didn't ask for anything. You know, in the sense of money. Yes, I know. Well, I'm in a tight spot right now, and I was wondering if you could spare a few $1,000s to help me. It was obvious that something had happened in the last few days. Something bad for my future ex-wife. I don't understand. I thought you had a lot of money. What do you mean, John? I didn't take anything from you or from your accounts. No, I meant your father's insurance. There should have been enough to last you for a long time. There was a pause on the other end of the line. John, did you know about the insurance? Of course. I'm not that dumb. What happened to all that cash from the account? Oh my God, John, I'm so ashamed. I did a stupid, very stupid thing. How stupid is he, Loretta? Raymond and I opened a joint bank account using a cash receipt that I received from the credit union. Let me guess. Raymond has run away from the city, and the bank account is empty. Yes. Yes, and I do not know what to do. John, I need your help. Are you going to go and get the money back? What do you mean? Go where? I have no idea where he is or where he might go. I'm guessing he's on his way to Colorado Springs to see his wife and kids. There was a long silence. Is he married? Yes, and he has 2 children. Why didn't you tell me? If you knew that, you should have told me, damn it, John. I'm sorry, dear. I got the distinct impression that you wanted me out of your life. Now I could tell she was crying. It's time to stop the torture. Loretta, come and see Seymour tomorrow. I'll call him and tell him to give you $5,000. That should be enough for a while, at least until you can get to Colorado and find a lawyer there to help you. John? Yes? Thanks. That was the last time I talked to Loretta. I think a lot of guys would say that I shouldn't have given her anything. That was my first impulse. She screwed up so badly that I just couldn't help but feel a little sorry for her. Jason had been staying at the lodge for over a month. It would be time for him to leave soon. Caitlin spent all her time with him and avoided Woody and me. We started joking about it. It was as if she was preparing him for his debut in our lodge group. We were all briefly introduced to each other, but none of us, except Caitlin, spent any time with him at all. There was a small library or reading room at one end of the main hall. One afternoon, Woody and I noticed that Caitlin and Jason were there with Amanda Freese. It wasn't a random gathering. In fact, it looked like an official meeting. Caitlin and Jason were both smartly dressed compared to their usual clothes. Amanda noticed Woody and I watching them and gave us a little smile. About an hour later, the children got up and came towards us. They both had big smiles on their faces. Now it's your turn, Daddy. Mrs. Freese wants to talk to you and Uncle John. Woody and I walked in like 2 kids who had been sent to a meeting with the principal. It turned out that Amanda Freese had more money than Woody and I could have imagined. We knew she had money, but we never imagined that she was obscenely rich. Amanda's father donated a lot of money to his old Princeton University, so much so that Amanda could have gotten everything she wanted from them. The only thing left to do now was to get Elwood F's approval. Perry hopes that his daughter will be admitted to Princeton in less than 2 weeks. As for Woody, it wasn't difficult. Terry later joined the 2 of us on the porch. It was too cold for beer, but we drank it anyway. We were trying to figure out if Caitlin really liked Jason or if she was just pretending to get a free ride to college. We didn't spend too much time on it. Terry still hadn't talked about Dora. Woody and I knew that this topic would never, ever be discussed. Later that evening, Amanda joined me in front of the fireplace with popcorn. Popcorn tastes better in the microwave, but cooking it in the fireplace was more fun. I liked the burnt, crispy grains better. I never thought wine was appropriate to drink with popcorn, but tonight seemed special to me. It was the first night in a long time that I didn't sleep alone. We thought we were being discreet, but we forgot that it was Caitlin who made the beds in the morning. Amanda's unmade bed did not go unnoticed. Amanda and I endured Caitlin's barbs at breakfast. Later that morning, Amanda moved her things into my room. Jason, who was usually very quiet and reserved, winked at me during lunch. I assumed I had his approval. WeatherGuard Recovery Enterprises has agreed to repair the destroyed house for $14,000 plus 5% of the profit from the resale. They specialized in repairing buildings damaged by storms and fires. The entire agreement was taken care of on the internet. I never saw the old house again and eventually made a profit of over $60,000. Sarah called to tell me that her mother had managed to get back almost all the money that Raymond had taken from her. Loretta left Colorado for Los Angeles. She planned to stay with her cousin who lived there. Amanda went with Jason and Caitlin to help them get settled at school. They had spent the last 2 weeks at the lodge renting a cabin, so Woody had no problem agreeing to let them share an apartment while they attended school. He realized that if he tried to do anything else, he would just disappoint himself. Before returning, Amanda stopped by her home in Burlington to pick up clothes and personal items she would need at the lodge. We all welcomed her decision to stay forever, especially Dora. who was dying to be in the company of women. Amanda was going to take over all the advertising and correspondence, two tasks that I've done but that I've never liked. To Luke's horror, Amanda stopped fishing for pike. Her obsession seemed to have passed. In late autumn, everything slowed down, as we were one of the few places in the area where there were no hunters. It gave us time to catch up and put things in order. Money was not a problem. We had a little Christmas party which had a Christmas tree and some presents. Amanda hung up some mistletoe, and Dora was delighted when her husband kissed her for the first time. After that, everything seemed to return to normal. Poor Woody was the only one who spent the holidays alone, but he didn't seem to mind too much. He never heard from Colleen again. Although my divorce was finalized, Amanda and I never discussed marriage. Everything was fine and the way it was, and none of us wanted to ruin it. Jason and Caitlin did not finish their first year at Princeton. After a hasty marriage in Maryland, Jason transferred to the University of Vermont, and the two lovebirds moved into the Burlington family home. Amanda was thrilled with her first grandchild. I think the birth control pills didn't work. Yes, it was childish, but it was a hell of a ride and a lot of fun. I would do it again. End.